Rolling sound, quiet. Here we go. Reading. 1.57. And starting right when action.
Welcome to this session from the Lone Star Film Festival. I'm Mitch Whitten with Visit Fort Worth. We're the home of the Fort Worth Film Commission. And we're here to talk about a film that will screen during Lone Star called Legends and Legacies, Commentaries on Fort Worth's African-American History. And I'm joined by our esteemed panelists who worked on this film and excited for y'all to be with us. Thanks so much. Tell us a little bit about yourself and we'll go around. Adam, kick us off.
I'm Adam Dietrich. I had the opportunity to direct and produce with my partner, Elliott, on the project. And we're just excited to be helping to share the story of Fort Worth through this lens. It's we just get a glimpse, but it's a pretty exciting project.
Elliott, welcome.
Yes, thanks for having me, guys. I'd like to say I'm Elliot Gilbert. I got to direct and produce with my partner, Adam Dietrich. It's a very special story. When the opportunity came our way, I was excited, to be a part. There's so many stories out there that have been untold, and I'm just happy that we had a chance to tell this one.
And Glenda Thompson, our consultant and guide on this film, thanks so much.
Thank you. My pleasure. Yes, I did consult. I helped with the script writing. I had a vision for this as well. And it was just my honor to work with Adam and Elliot in bringing this to a reality that turned out just like I thought it would.
And Glenda's being so modest, by the way. Like, Glenda's everything, right? She was our fixer. She was our spiritual guide. She was a huge part of the storytelling. I mean, it was really special to go on the journey with her.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you.
Well, Legends and Legacies was a special project for Visit Fort Worth because we believe in community-based tourism. And we believe that to tell the story of the city, you need everyone to share their story. And we want to tell more stories. So we worked with this team, Adam, Elliot, Glenda, and others, to talk about our past, not just the future and not just visiting Fort Worth, but where did we come from and what was that like? So we've got a clip of the film, and we're going to take a look at that now, a few second clip from Legends and Legacies, Commentaries on Fort Worth's African-American Heritage.
It is simply written to demonstrate the fact that a humble black boy with ambition and faith in the architect of the universe can realize his goal if he will earnestly and honestly work toward that end. Now that is profound.
Well, as you can see in the clip, you saw there at Evans Rosedale Plaza, there are places you can go in our city, of course, to learn about that history. And Adam and Elliot, what was it? You really captured the essence of quite a few people from the community who could talk about the history. Tell us, what was it like working on the project?
Oh man, dude, it was fantastic. For me, I was born in Nashville, Tennessee. I grew up in Arlington, a suburb there, and I knew Fort Worth, but I didn't have a deep history of Fort Worth and all the different areas of Fort Worth. So I was learning as I was going, and going to these places that, I may have heard of, but a lot I had never heard of. So it was great just to meet the characters and meet the living people, and they had so much passion, they had so much knowledge of the place, and for me, it just brought it to life. And I just had to want to capture every word we could capture,
It was so true. I mean, I've been here for over 2 decades, Mitch. You know that. I've worked with Glenda in the past, and I've had the great opportunity to work in a lot of the communities throughout Fort Worth, whether in outreach programs or in the theater community or now in film. And, we were discovering so much about the near South Side or Terrell Heights, about Stop 6, about communities I had actually never heard of: Batter Cake Flats, Baptist Hill, Mosier Valley. I mean, these names, I've been here for over 2 decades in the city of Fort Worth specifically, and I've never really explored those communities, some of which I didn't even know existed. Terrell Heights is right off of I-35. just outside of downtown. I mean, anytime you're in the city of Fort Worth proper, you're passing Terrell Heights. And I had spent a little bit of time there, but to dive into the rich history of that community and discover that there was this thriving business district that was exclusively or almost exclusively African American for 2, 3, 4 decades. I mean, it's a treasure trove that we barely dipped our finger into. And to hear all of the different voices that we got to share time with speak about that was, I mean, it's exciting. I mean, you know, and from a tourism standpoint, it was, I mean, because this is kind of a unique way to make a movie, you know, which I really love. Having this be a way to showcase the city of Fort Worth. And in the process, you guys gave us complete liberty to tell the story as we saw fit. And in the process, you discover so much that makes you want to dive into that community and makes you want to really connect to the businesses that are there now and discover the businesses that were there in the past. It was really cool.
You bring up an interesting point that, you know, you mentioned quite a few place names, and really claiming those place names and making sure that the next generation remembers that, and that they know that Fort Worth's historic Black community was not just in one part of town, but there were vibrant, incredible neighborhoods in north, south, east, and west, and that the historic South Side, that there's so much heritage there and so much to go and learn. But really, to help us uncover that, Glenda, we worked with you and the Fort Worth Metropolitan Black Chamber of Commerce to really identify those stories. I mean, it kind of reminds me of the play Hamilton in a way. Who's going to tell your story? And you helped us really organize that. How did you approach the film?
Well, you know, to my knowledge, a comprehensive history of African American culture didn't exist. There were bits and pieces. There were stories that my family told me, but they were just generational bits and pieces. What we attempted to do when we started with the script is to do a chronological order, post-slavery through the current time. And I was amazed. I'm a native, and so I'd heard some of the stories, but I was amazed at the resilience of the African American community when we delved off into it. And this was always doing pretty much, we covered a huge portion of time where segregation was the flavor of the minute. And so for us to have the Black Business District, Terrell Heights, even the story about the post-slavery period, the African-American community could only live on certain land, and it was the land that was least desired, and it was called the Bottoms. And to actually have spoken to some people that remembered that from either their grandmother was there or their aunt was there was just like walking in history. It was really exciting.
Glenda, what did you hope that would be the legacy of this film? It would be, what did you want it to accomplish?
Well, you know, actually, I had one goal. Most communities, especially African American communities, started the same way. The story of how the African American communities grew from post-slavery time to post-segregation is not unique, but our story was unique in that it was our story, and it was really a matter of what we produced. We wanted to capture how these people came from humble beginnings to have their own bank, to have their own hotel, and a lot of this was, you know, regardless of whether they were literate, they just made it happen. And so my goal was to just capture the spirit of the culture in a chronological form that we could have for generations to come.
Well, I have a question for all of you. You know, one of the things I like most about this film are the different personalities, and we meet so many different people who each have their own story and their own experience in Fort Worth. tell me about a personality maybe that really caught your attention, or someone you enjoyed talking to and pulling out their story.
I'll go. You want me to go first? Clifford Davis. This man single-handedly helped to integrate Fort Worth schools. And he's about 93, 94. And when you first meet him, you think, oh, he's a nice old guy. And he kind of passions himself to just sit there quietly with his eyes partially closed. And you think, okay, is he going to make it through the interview? And when the cameras started to roll, he just perked up. And he tells these great stories of how he worked with the superintendent, and he couldn't let the group of ministers know what he was doing downtown, and just a fascinating guy. And the real story to that is years ago, in my young days, I ran out of gas, and Clifford Davis was directly behind me. We had just kind of gotten off an interstate. And he asked if I needed help, and he gave me $5 to get gas. And I told him who my dad was, who was a restaurant owner in an area called Stop 6. And we parted ways. Well, I paid him back that $5 during the filming. This was years later, and he remembered the story, so it was kind of cool.
That's awesome.
And to this day, I have not run out of gas since, because he lectured me the whole time. So
there were so many great characters. I have to say, Marion Eastman, to me, her energy was so full of life, and her rhythm and the way she spoke and how she spoke. I mean, it's like when she would talk about the neighborhoods, it's like I was transported back, and I was like, as if I'm there listening while we were getting the interview. And I was no longer in the interview. I was like on the street, hearing the sounds and seeing the people. It's fantastic. There are so many great characters.
It's so true. Miss Eastman is a local legend, maybe a national legend, just for the impact that she's had on storytelling in the theater through Jubilee. But she really brought a personalization to the story about just living. When you heard her talk about just growing up in Fort Worth and her perspective on it, and it really just had to do with the grocery stores that she shopped at, and the department stores that she went to, and the restaurants and the church, and it was all about this community that you don't get to hear a lot about. And she created this picture of living in the 50s in Fort Worth in a way that I just.
Let's. Can
you hear me?
Yeah. So Adam, I want to go back to you and ask you a little bit about. Of course, you're talking about the Eastmans. Marion and her husband Rudy founded Jubilee Theater, located in the heart of downtown now. And you were talking about, what a vibrant interview she was. I wanted to ask you, what is Adam and Elliot, what's the secret for filmmakers who may be watching and they're trying to draw stories out of people? What's the secret? You had people sharing so much. How did you do that?
Well, I think that's going to be different for every artist as they go on that journey of telling a story. But for us, one of the reasons that Elliot and I love telling stories together, we've been best friends for 30 plus years. And I'll just speak for myself. I feel very safe with Elliot. And we try to create a safe place for everybody to share stories, and also give them the confidence that we're going to honor those stories while they're there and when they're gone. So I think for us, it's really about creating a safe place and listening to people. And putting everything we have into it. Elliot and I on this project, Mitch knows, because this project started much smaller and we just kept kind of expanding. And And thank God, Mitch and Glenda and everybody that was a part just kept saying, "This sounds wonderful. Let's go there. Let's keep going." And so we try to do that for others. We try to say, we don't want to limit you. We want to clear the limitations.
And if I could just say, in watching both of you work, I remember, Mitch, I was kind of in Adam's ear saying, okay, we've got to be somewhere at this time. And he would get pulled into a story and someone would talk, and he was such a great listener. He was actively listening. He and Elliot have this knack to be able to just kind of get lost in the story as someone's telling it. And of course, I was like on the tech side saying, we gotta go, it's time. But throughout it all, I'm really glad that he just took that time to hear people. And of course, we had some edits, but what we got was so authentic.
Elliot, walk us through the process. Did you pre-interview people? Was it a cold interview? How did that work?
Well, some of the people, it was kind of we would talk beforehand, kind of talk through some of the things, and then we would start rolling. And a lot of times it's just like we just kind of say, okay, this is kind of the idea. We're going to set it up this way. We want to set it up that way. And you just kind of roll. And then we just start throwing out different questions. And then it would lead down another rabbit hole. And then we'd come back, to another section. And it just kind of bounced off. I think a lot of it was we tried to, again, Adam said, like, we try to make it safe. We try to make everyone feel as like it's a family. We're a fly on the wall, and for you to just tell your story and just feel that you can be open with it. And we just kind of bounced off different things that way.
Mitch, I think it's really, just to add on to that, I think it's important to harken back to what Glenda was saying, is there is no really complete storytelling of the history of Fort Worth's historically Black communities. I mean, you have a book, The History of Fort Worth in Black and White. You have Bob Ray Sanders' incredible book with Calvin Littlejohn's photographs that are incredible. You have a collection of books from another author that try to tackle different topics within the history of Fort Worth's Black communities, but there isn't just a single source to go to. Right. So a lot of this process was sitting with people and learning and kind of piecing together these details to try to figure out a really firm chronological order of the history that was representative of the community and everything that entails. And it's not, it's definitely finding a needle in a haystack at times, I would think. Glenda, do you agree with that?
Totally. When I was writing the script, I had to actually categorize because there was so much. So we actually took education, the medical industry, business, and then there was a pocket for other. And we had to kind of use that to just kind of strip things away because there were so many stories. And even after the filming, as Adam and Elliot and Mitch, you're aware, there were people saying, oh, can you add this in? So that was really challenging. There was a lot. I guess I spent probably about 9 or 10 hours just kind of putting that together so that it made sense. And once it made sense, I knew I could turn it over to your creativity to make it make even more sense.
And Glenn, just to explain what you mean by script writing, talk about what you did kind of before and after filming in terms of helping organize, because obviously the interviews were unscripted, but you brought a lot to organizing it.
We actually sat in a conference room at Visit Fort Worth and determined who we wanted to feature. And we had a list and we did the chalkboard of, this is good, well, let's have this person. And I think I remember saying, well, we've got to have Marion Eastman. And it was very organic. and we came up with people that would actually be interviewed. And then I took the script that had been written so that we could use that as kind of a parameter for where we were going. So a lot of the information from the medical community or the education we picked up at the Evans Plaza, but it was kind of like it was a puzzle. It was like you have this person to tell their story, but then we have this piece of history to add to it. And it was really, it was challenging, but it was really rewarding.
And Elliot, how, you talk a lot about building trust, you and Adam, and letting people tell their stories. How long did you leave for each other? Because this was not just a show up, get a comment, and leave. I mean, you let the camera run.
Oh yeah. We definitely, we would, obviously we'd have the guys come in, they'd set the lighting, set the camera, and then we would talk with the individual, and then we would start rolling, and it would just depend. Sometimes I remember going, 2 hours, 3 hours, just rolling it, and we're going there and we're knowing, okay, we got to go here, and we know sunlight's going here because we got to get an outside shot of the plaza. And we want this. So there were definitely times where we would just let it roll, and that's a lot of times you find some of the gems that way as well.
As Glenda was saying, there was a lot of time just guessing. And if there are filmmakers watching who are interested in these type of projects, there was a lot of time just talking about with different, not just us, but with different people in the community about what might go into this project. And then Adam and Elliot, when you joined that conversation, how did you decide on the approach, the look, what the tone of the story would be? Where did you draw your inspiration from?
It's interesting. I know we talked about this at great length. There was a movie that initially inspired us that we came to you guys with called The Last Black Man in San Francisco. And they had just done a really good job of incorporating a city as a character into the narrative. And we were really compelled by that. And so we wanted to make sure that the past and the present communities that we were representing were physically represented in the piece, but also somehow aesthetically represented, so that you always felt community. So like, for instance, Glenn and Dee are sitting in this amazing coffee shop called Black Coffee over by Texas Wesleyan. We wanted to make sure we put them in an environment that was community driven. Roy and Jennifer Brooks are over in the library right in the heart of Terrell Heights. And we wanted to put them in that environment. In addition to seeing people like Bob Ray Sanders and Opal Lee at installations that we want people to go to in the city of Fort Worth, right? So we wanted to put some people in some of these installations because a part of it is because obviously we were working with Visit Fort Worth, so we want people to visit Fort Worth and go to those places. But more importantly, I think it was about those places being a launching point for conversations about the history of these communities. And so seeing Opal Lee on that bench in the installation about the TMP station and about the impact that being a Pullman porter had on our communities, where her father was an employee of the TMP Railroad, so all of that being kind of mixed into it contextually was really important for us. Elliot, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, there's especially speaking of that moment when she's sitting on the bench and, and she talks about how the waiting room was segregated at the time and just knowing the history and she's there and we're talking about this and she's sitting on that bench where at that time that was the way of life. And just that moment, the moment where, Bob Ray is up against the and looking at the mural there at the train station. Man, that to me, that's almost like you're just looking at your ancestors and and we had those moments where we zoomed in really, really tight. And then we're kind of playing with light and all that. And just to get that, I just feel like that just echoes their voice, echoes the spirit. And when we cut to those moments in the film, I think that's we had to have that. If we didn't have that, I felt like we would have lost certain things,
And Bob Ray, Bob
part
Ray
of your
spent a
strategy.
lifetime
Go ahead.
documenting the city of Fort Worth, and now he's physically touching an artist's representation of that city and those communities. I love it. I mean,
Well, one thing y'all pointed out and that you did that was so interesting was you could have interviewed these people by themselves, but a number of them are paired up, as y'all were just saying. And so talk about that technique a little bit, because that created a conversation. Was that hard to capture, or did that end up really help the storytelling?
We would have done it more. Honestly, we wanted it, for filmmakers that are out there, our desire was to have 6, 7 people sitting talking. We wanted people sitting on stoops on busy streets and things like that. But we have that might happen in the feature version of this, right? You have to. We worked with our team, with Mitch and Glenda and all the representation on the project to try to figure out what we could do within our circumstance. And so we kept it to 2 or 3 people. And the hope was that we were representing that this is a dialogue, that this is a conversation, that this isn't only talking about the past, but we're having a conversation about time itself, about the past, present, and our future, that they don't exist without each other. And I think the civil rights movement in general has had such a keen awareness of that the entire time of its existence, making sure that people are focused not on the past and the present only, but also about what we are going to do and where we are going.
Glenda, when we finished the project, I remember we gathered a lot of the people who had worked on it and who were in the film at the Granbury Theater on the west side, a new theater that really combines the names of a historic Black theater and a historic whites only theater into a new experience. And so we showed the screening, and it was really a great reception. What reaction from the community have you sensed to this film?
People have been extremely proud to be able to see something to this magnitude and this quality. Pride, excitement, wanting more. And I believe that we've probably only scratched the surface with showing this. We showed it to a small group, but I'm hoping that at some point we can make it available to even more people.
And you can see it as well at fortworth.com. Click on Discover Diverse Fort Worth, and you'll find the 21-minute documentary there as well. We're almost out of time, but I want to ask each of you to comment on advice for filmmakers and other storytellers who are watching, to any advice on how to approach projects like this in the future.
Adam?
Well, I say get as many photographs as you can get. Get as many physical representations of the subject that you're studying. Read as much as you can, and get out there. Try to see the physical places that you're talking about in the film, because if you do that, I feel like that helps you a lot when you're crafting the story.
I think it's really interesting. I mean, Elliot and I have done a lot of docudramas, which are kind of a hybrid art form that blends blends more representational storytelling with documentary. And this was interesting because I think in a documentary, you really got to keep open to what you're learning along the way and the discovery process. And I think that was one of the most fun parts of this project, is really getting to know Dee and Glenn and Bob Ray and Miss Eastman and all the people that were involved, Roy and Jennifer and all the people that were involved, and really investing in them so that we could bring something new to the conversation. And whether we achieve that is yet to be seen. But I think that process made it really rewarding.
Glenda?
I think the most important thing for me was, and it's just my tendency to plan. And I tried to do a lot of advanced planning so that Adam and Elliot could just get into the artistic aspect of making this a reality. But also knowing the people that you're working with. making the calls, making sure they're there. That's just kind of part of it. But the planning piece for me was the most important piece, because as much as I loved the way we delved off into things and went in other directions, I always felt that, there should be a guiding factor that said, we're going to have these parameters. And so that's what I tried to bring to the table in working with you guys. And I hope you appreciated it. I tried to get everyone home on time in the evening. So.
Well, a lot of great information for people watching. A lot of a big takeaway in terms of time, taking the time, building the trust, following the story, letting the story carry you. And you did an amazing job on the film. Again, thank you to our panelists, Glenda Thompson, Adam Dietrich, Elliot Gilbert. Thanks also to the Fort Worth Metropolitan Black Chamber of Commerce, who was our partner on the project. And really, thank you all for really showing us a new way to tell a community story. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you at Lone Star Film Festival.
Great.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.